All right, brand innovators, coming back from lunch. Who's ready to talk about brand building in the age of wellness? Thank you, Tonal, for having us. Thank you, brand innovators. My name is James Salwasser. I'm with OUTFRONT Media. We're a leader in the out-of-home space. Love talking to brand marketers about all of the cool innovations that we can do. Heard a lot about personalization, and that is definitely something you can do with digital out-of-home now. You can be nimble and quick, and you can be long and permanent. So we can do a lot of everything. Very lucky to have Jasmine from Samsung here at home with us, and Jennifer from OLLY. So thank you for joining me. I'd like to just kind of kick it off and learn a little bit, and if you could tell the audience a little bit about what each of you do. Almost dropped my phone.
It would have been loud, when it hit that.
Yes. Jennifer, you want to
Sure.
give a quick intro?
Yeah, I'm Jennifer Peters. I'm from OLLY. If you're not sure what OLLY is, if you've ever been to Target, you have probably seen us. We're always on the first end cap as soon as you walk into Target. We're a gummy vitamin company, and we started out as a startup here in San Francisco, and we're acquired by Unilever in 2019. So now we used to hate the man, and now we are the man.
Jasmine?
Can you hear me? Yes? I'm Jasmine Kim. I'm head of Care at Home, and Samsung Health, for those of you know or don't know. I mean, many of you probably already know Samsung by the refrigerators, the microwave, the phone, the wearable. And we are looking to shift all of that into how do we actually provide ambient health monitoring for you in the home. And then the second aspect is that we have a treasure trove of biomarkers and technology that undergirds that. So we're actually looking to how do we provide partnerships so that we could deliver all aspect of digital health from wellness to diagnostic at the place of your home, and home being metaphorical because it's wherever you are and wherever you want to be cared for and wherever you want to care for others. And so it is anchored in your home per se, but we look at home as more metaphorical, like actually anchored around you, wherever you want to make your home.
Mm-hmm. Great. So we'll start this off. Jennifer, you mentioned when we were talking earlier about the loyalty aspect of the supplement brand, and I think that that's something that when we talk about brand building and the sort of coming out of COVID, all of the things that were pushed upon us, we were trying everything. Like, how does OLLY, what do you think about in that and the loyalty aspect? Like, what does OLLY do that separates themselves and makes them so great?
That's a great question. We have a huge advantage because vitamin people generally stick with the same vitamin that they take. You don't change brands every time you finish a package. So that's a huge advantage already. If you're already taking our women's multi-gummy, you're not going to immediately just go try a competitor at the end of the day when your bottle runs out. You're probably going to stick with it. So that inherently helps us a lot to maintain a lot of loyalty with our customers. We are in a lot of channels. We're a fully omni-channel business. About 70% of our business is still brick and mortar. So that's kind of an interesting challenge because as we talked, somebody mentioned identity resolution earlier, and that is always a challenge, especially when you don't own your own retail stores. So kind of delivering that connection of all the places your customers could buy your product is really, really challenging. It's very hard to tell if you've churned a customer, if they're shopping on Amazon, or if they're shopping at Publix. It's really tricky. So what we do on our direct-to-consumer site is we really focus on ways we can serve our customer that other channels can't. So we have a loyalty program. Customers earn points on their purchases. We have a subscription program. It's a huge part of our business, and we really provide those products right when you're out, like it's kind of the right-on-time delivery. And we also do, for our non-subscription customers, we do have a lot of triggered messaging and journeys built around the fact that we know that this has 30 servings in it. We know that you've already taken 20 of them. We know it's time for you to reorder. So being able to have that kind of like just-in-time messaging helps a lot to help customers understand, I've got to get this right now. If I order it today, it'll be here in time before my products run out. So for us, it's been, direct-to-consumer is really challenging, especially when you are heavily a brick-and-mortar brand. So you really have to look for those niches that you can maximize in those spaces, and that's really what we do in direct-to-consumer.
Mm-hmm. And when your founder started OLLY, was that something they thought of in the roadmap? Like, where did the direct-to-consumer side fit into building the brand and then switching from? Is that something that you understood you needed to reach audiences wherever they are, and so that was the the adoption of it?
I think it evolved over time. Our founder is Eric Ryan. He's also a San Franciscan, also founder of Method, also founder of OLLY. He's sort of a pathological brand founder. So I don't know that he was thinking that far down the line, but our business model is always really based on a relationship with Target. So they're kind of our innovation partner. So when he launches a new brand, the relationship is really more about the brick and mortar experience at the time. But as those brands have grown, and they've all grown in different ways, I don't know that direct to consumer is the first thing that he is thinking about because we're not a digitally native brand. We are a brick and mortar brand. So the digital piece is kind of like the icing on the cake. I think where we can really maximize building the relationship with the customers and the brand.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. So being highly personalized, we heard a lot about that today, and being able to serve the right message at the right time. You know, when we run out of product, being able to get it, you know, automatically. I think that's something that consumers look for. So sort of a natural fit there. Yeah. Jasmine, give us a little bit more insight as you know what Samsung is doing for digital health. I mean, when we just talked about loyalty, like you have to be all in on Samsung if you want everything to be cohesive and work together. Or give us a little bit of insight from your perspective.
The answer is no. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay.
I can hear you now.
Actually, I'll talk about loyalty in a little different way because I see a lot of my, hi Caitlin, a lot of my friends from, I started my career as a CMO, but I've actually been in general management as a CEO, so this is a very broad purview that I have at Samsung. But could I just get you to raise your hand? How many of you guys are wearing any kind of a wearable? Okay, obviously I would assume that we would index more than America, but typically, so that you know, 1 in 2 persons in America, the general public, is wearing some kind of a biomarker, some kind of a wearable, or they made a purchase. Doesn't mean that they're actually wearing it, but they made a purchase. And so a couple of things that we do is basically, if you think about wearable, that is a B2C, but a biomarker is actually a B2B. And the biomarker metric is actually inside your wearable, right? So I think about loyalty as, we could talk about all the trigger messages, but I think the couple of things is that the reason biomarkers and wearables are really interesting is to actually give you sensing data about yourself and your particular healthcare journey so that you could make small, tiny behavioral changes that are meaningful for you. Okay, human beings, I don't know about you, but I hate change. Like, it's just, there's too much going on, right? And how many times, like, it's already February, how many of you made a resolution or beginning of January, dry January, I'm going to stop eating this, I'm going to go gluten-free, I'm going to go vegan, etc. And then by 3rd or 4th week of January, you're like, right?
3rd or 4th week. It
yeah,
was like
how many of you
days
got in the gym, I don't want to say tonal, but like, you know, my soul cycle, whatever it is, and you're like, I bought it, 3 weeks later, you're down probably 50%. So our job, one of the key things that we try to do, and I'll get like talking about loyalty, is that to make sure that we actually have the actual algorithm that we put into the biosensor that is in your wearable to actually talk to you and to actually speak to you and provide content to you at the places where it would actually make a difference for you to change your behavior, even just a little. Or for me to say, oh, that's interesting. I realize if I don't have coffee at this, I actually sleep better. Or that I actually like to go drink half a glass of wine and actually makes me sleep better and I'm actually happier, is what my husband tells me. So I think that those are the little changes that we're looking. And so I think that if you look from a marketing and a branding point of view, it's about how do you have a really great user experience at the product level, at the communication level, inside the app, inside the product, in your operating system. How do we make sure that we use all kinds of AI, and I think that AI is like marketer's best friend, to make sure that we're actually saying a language or the kind of prompts to you that is relevant to you, that user. It could be that some of us, no matter what we do, you know, we like carrot sticks, and some of us actually want punishment. We are actually motivated by different things at different loops of our health journey. So I think that we actually need to kind of sense that we'll never know what you actually want intently, but we could actually start looking at the data over time and said, maybe at these times, Caitlin would like to have this kind of, prompt so that she could do this better. Other time, I'm going to say, hey, Caitlin, you got to get up and go out running today because the sun is shining. right? So I think that's how we think about brand building and loyalty, because we could do all the really focusing on what's that branded experience. And we really look at, even at a user point of view and a kind of a literally user experience point of view, at the point of how we actually construct the biosensor and the wearable. There are things that you're going to want on your watch that's different from a ring, different from your actual app phone, or whatever, whether it's Tonal, or whether it's SoulCycle, whether it's Peloton in your home, that you're going to want differently, or even how I interface with you, because I'm the Samsung refrigerator, and on the family hub that is now in front of the refrigerator, we could actually say, hey, consider maybe with the ingredients you have in your refrigerator, you might want to make this healthy recipe, and give you options to actually change.
Yeah, yeah, it's super interesting. I link it back to everything you just said is like building habits, right? Like, and
routines.
Routines, and taking a supplement at certain life stages has to become part of the routine, part of the habit. And then we heard this morning from Tonal about his background was getting the top performing athletes to get to 1% better, and then he showed a bunch of great stats about how if you just do a little bit, you could be 25% better, perhaps with strength training. So in both of what you do, the end goal being a problem to solve for the consumer, what kind of metrics or outputs are you trying to build upon that you do in your roles as marketers to get the consumer to think like that? Or, are you incentivizing through a loyalty program? Are you, gamifying it through the apps that you build, and then tie it back to the on your fridge screen, it can say, great job, James, you did not eat that full-fat yogurt. You love it, but you didn't eat it today. Give us a little bit about insight on that side, how you kind of approach the consumer and some of the tactics that you pull off.
Yeah, so really good question. A really good question. I think it goes back to, we deploy probably, and I'm fairly new to Samsung, but I've been in this business for a while. We have like the highest group of behavioral scientists, and I happen to be really lucky that even in my last 2 jobs, a lot of the marketers I work with had behavioral science understanding, as well as really getting access to metrics. And so one of the key things we look for is really change in routine. It's not even we're trying to gamify. We first try to understand you as the person. Like, what's your routine? What's your current routine today? How is it going to change? And we also know that healthcare is a loop and a life is a loop. So we don't try to put you on a linear, like there's some end goal. Might be a little bit different probably for Tonal, because you have Tonal, things like Tonal and certain things, like I wear Whoop, that's like geared toward a person persona. So I think it's to really focus, who are the top 2-3 persona that you're speaking with to get a beachhead in actually getting your brand and getting your product out there, and really making sure that they're actually like deliriously happy in what you do. So we really focus on 2 or 3 personas. Like, I'm sure I'm gonna hear from my corporate PR team, but like we say like we're for billions, and I was like, that's too many. The reason I say that, not because that's not a objective business goal, but to get a beachhead, to get people actually using, you have to have like even a small 10% community who just absolutely love you, who actually grok exactly what you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. So we look for, and ours is not a high-end athlete, ours is people who want a holistic kind of view on health and wellness that's fairly easy and accessible. And that hopefully is a big chunk of us, because it is that Samsung is in a pretty big brand. But I think that we really look for routines, and we really look for routines and like we're really focusing on a certain segment, and we know that that segment also is going to be the person who's going to actually provide care for not just themselves, for their families. So we actually have a really broad perspective on that, opposed to just that singular athlete who is the the measure self. Mm-hmm. Which we could do in our watch, but that's not our core goal. So we really start to look at what do they like, where are they spending, what are the other things that they do. So we try to actually figure out what is the kind of the entire ambient aspect of how he or she would look at the care at home journey, and we try to provide that. So for example, one of the other things that we do know is that how many of you actually have tested something at home? Cough, COVID, GLG, cholesterol, right? So we know that that's a huge group. So how do we actually overlay that? And how do we provide data through telehealth monitoring a video screen or things that you could do from the food or whatever? So that's how we try to do it.
I'm so glad you brought up New Year's resolutions, because I think for us, our communications and our messaging is really an important way that we do that. So we don't do New Year's resolutions, we do New Year's evolutions. Again, it's like incremental improvements that you can make in your life that make your life incrementally better. And we've done this type of messaging. January, February, March is always our biggest time of year. Everyone starts off the year with like the highest hopes for their health for the year. And exactly what Jasmine was saying, there's a clear drop-off that happens pretty quickly. And for us, what we wanted to do is really embrace the fact that you don't have to change everything in your life to make it incrementally better. You add in a multivitamin and you take it every day, like that's something to be proud of. Like you did that. That's awesome. If you are starting a new fitness routine and we can support that with our pre and post-workout gummies, awesome. So I think the communications for us is really about looking at our customers, and our customer base is primarily millennial women, and setting reasonable and achievable expectations for what you can hope to get out of your New Year's resolutions or any goals that you might be setting for yourself. So I think for us, that's a big way that we do that. And one of our brand pillars is to be relatable. We want to be relatable. We want to be able to support our customers and who they are and where they are and what path they're on. And that's one of the ways that we've done that. And I think you can measure that in a lot of different ways. You can look at churn. I mean, we're constantly measuring churn for subscriptions and just customers in general. But overall, we look at the sentiment that relates to each of our products. We look at the sentiment that relates to our brand, constantly looking at what kind of new to brand we're driving and what products are driving new to brand for us. And the two products that drive the most new to brand for us are sexual wellness products. And so that, I think, is another piece of that kind of health circle of, it's not just a multivitamin, it's kind of all these pieces of your life that you can make incremental improvements in. And it really does, we can kind of connect all the dots that way.
Yeah. And one thing that we talked about, and it comes up in my household, is that, and you can speak to it, Jennifer, is that OLLY is fun, right? I grew up with Flintstone vitamins, so now you know how old I am. They were fun, but they didn't taste good. And I don't know if I have PTSD from that, but my kids, who are 5 and 7, love the OLLY gummies, and they're worms. And I'm like, if I could have eaten gummy worms when I was a kid, I'd probably eat a lot more vitamins. So give us a little insight on like packaging, branding, the product itself. Like, what does that entail, especially if you're thinking about launching new products and getting to market to reach other audiences?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, another one of our brand pillars is to be delightful. We want the experience of taking vitamins to make you happy and make you feel good when you do it. And our products are manufactured in candy factories. Like, I'm not gonna lie, they come from candy factories. So that's why they taste so good. Like, we have flavor scientists, they work really hard on making them good. So it's very much that drives a lot of our product development, is like, is this format going to be delightful? If the answer is no, then we don't go down that path. So that I think is a big piece of a differentiator of how we differentiate from some of the other brands. Our packaging at the time, and I'm glad you brought that up, was honestly revolutionary. When we launched, everything was like an A, B, zinc. It was kind of these very traditional drugstore letter brands on the shelf and these very traditional, kind of ugly, plain pharmacy-looking packaging. And that was our kind of out-of-the-gate innovation, was the way our packaging looked. And it still is. I mean, the packaging is so beautiful, you almost don't need marketing. It just kind of sells itself because it still looks fresh, it still looks exciting. Obviously, we have a lot of challenger brands now that have very similar packaging, so we have to kind of find other ways to innovate. But at the same time, that really was a defining characteristic of who we were when we hit the market.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. Is it on? Yeah. I mean, packaging is a little different for some of our products, also wearables, but what's interesting is that understanding now today, especially after COVID, 8 out of 10 persons says that wellness and health is really central to their lives. So it is actually now looking at all the overall aspect of what does our refrigerator do, what is our microwave, what is our video screen, air purifier, et cetera, and to really look at what is the health aspect of that benefit that is relevant to you, that persona, and then also even a wearable to know that not just running faster or whatever, but like this is how you're sleeping, and then the sleep is connected to your nutrition, that's connected to your mental wellness, and really providing a holistic data. So a lot of what we do is actually, quote, packaging in a sense is the front interface to really have you connect the dots, so that I think our USP, because it isn't a wearable and a biomarker, is to show you that all of them are connected. You could always start from just sleep, and I'm sure all of you have probably 4 to 7 apps, because he's looking at one right now, on your screen. And but I think that somebody who really is pursuing the healthcare journey, whether it's just wellness or that you have some condition diagnostic that you have to manage, that the doctor will eventually tell you. So I think that is the part about how do we provide, how do we actually package it in a way that you understand that this is a piece of a whole, which is a much harder story, especially in healthcare.
Yeah. Switching gears a little bit, it's a great point. We were talking about health at home, right? And that was brought up in the Susie presentation as well. We, as a country, face problems when it comes to healthcare that other countries may not face, and it can be very costly. And so preventative health and health at home, I think coming out of pandemic has been top of mind with probably a lot of people in here and most consumers. What is that, what are you doing from both of your brands' sake to make the consumer feel like they can have a stake in their preventative health and get better at it?
I'm like on a soapbox about this, so I'll just tell you. Okay, so just to give you a grounding, because prior to my job, I was heading up Sutter Health. So just to give you a grounding, $1 in $4 in America is spent on some form of health care or health wellness. That's a lot of money, okay? And we do it per capita like 10x than almost any other industrialized country. That's one. Second point is that during COVID, because of multiple issues, almost a third of all healthcare workers decided to leave their jobs. Okay, so I don't know about you, but many people in San Francisco will say that they cannot, if you're new to San Francisco, you cannot find a primary care unless you drive to Nevada. Okay, I know that for a fact. If you want a specialist, it'll take you have to be your own assistant for a half a day to track that person down, right? Even with all the apps in the world. And I think the third thing is that the cost of care, because our payment system, essentially, all of our commercial insurance or your covered insurance, I don't think anybody's on Medicare because we all look relatively youthful, that it really covers for when you're sick, not when you're actually staying out of sickness. So one of the key things I think everybody's understanding is that how do we actually do preventative care? So one thing that we're doing at Samsung is to really get that information out, and then also to work with partners to actually have the preventative aspect of your health management be covered or paid for. Because there has to be financial incentivization. No matter how much I tell you how great the wearable is, $399 is, okay, maybe most of us could afford that, but a lot of people can't. Or they're only gonna afford it if somebody else buys it for them and teaches them how to, the whole thing works, right? So that's one area. Second is to really make them understand this kind of cost equation as much as possible in really simple language. So at CES recently, we partner with AARP, you guys might know or not know who they are, but let me just tell. So we created a Samsung Health House, which is a concept house, to say that if we were to actually, so we're all carried at home and aging at home. I have a 20-year-old son, and he said, Mom, like during COVID, I'm like getting old at home. And I said, get in line. Like, so are all of us, right? The minute you're born, you are being cared at home or you are aging at home, whether you're 0, and we talk about it a lot for people who are over 65, but I would also say a lot of people who are over 65, that condition, we experience it when any of us get sick. You just get it longer and more chronic when you're older. We have it like all of us have flus, you have downtimes, et cetera. So I think it's all in our best interest to figure out how we do a better job to change. And then to show you the data connection, if you can make these changes, maybe some of the things that your parents experienced because they didn't have this insight, or the fact that we don't have all the level of wearables, biomarker insights, communication content, completely, AI-generated content that follows your journey, that maybe we could help you prevent some of these things that a lot of our parents or a lot of our, older people who didn't have those kind of access to information and services, couldn't, it's too late to change. So that's what we try to do. Sorry for the long one.
No, that's great. And Jennifer, I'll sort of reframe it for you, but so we give up our data to have this experience. And I think everyone in this room is like, we're either on the marketing or the sales side. So from the marketing side, you want to collect it so you can better serve your audiences and better message them. From the sales side, we want to supply those data sets. I think from a consumer side, most average consumers don't understand the give and take of that, like the dynamic. And so the authenticity and the trust that you heard a lot about today, you have to have that. I think, I'm sorry, the referencing the Susie thing right before lunch, but yeah, I'll give my data to my watch to know that I'm exercising how much I should, right? With supplements and FDA approval and things like that, how do you sort of speak that language of like, trust us, we're going to help you along this journey in a world that is somewhat nefarious in some cases?
Well, I think you'd be surprised at what kind of information people will put into a quiz. So for us, a lot of it is that zero-party data element of, if you're not sure, just ask your customer. They're pretty likely to tell you. And a lot of that is because they do want that better, more personalized experience at the end of the day. There are people who don't care for that, and that's fine too. But we gather a lot of data through quizzes and really like behavioral analysis of how people act on our site, what they do, what they click on, what they don't click on, what they think is clickable but isn't. There's so much you can learn by watching just the raw behavior. It tells you a lot about it. I run our direct-to-consumer website, and one of the great indicators of somebody not being able to find something that they're looking for is using search. Usually people don't use search on a website unless they don't see what they're looking for. And for us, it's a great place to look to understand what are people looking for that we don't sell. So magnesium is super hot right now. We don't have a magnesium supplement. We have a couple products with magnesium in them, but it's so hot right now, and everyone is just like, I already take OLLY, I came here to look for magnesium, and I don't know what to do now. So for us, that's like a huge indicator in like what we've got to focus on next in the innovation space. Cognitive is huge too right now. Everybody is looking for that Adderall dupe that they saw on TikTok, and not just that demographic, but a lot of people are looking for brain health and something that'll help them think faster and clearer and focus. And that is a huge, very, very fast-growing piece of the supplement business right now. And we get that information from watching how our customers behave. And that is probably the most useful data point that we have, is just raw behavior.
Yeah, listening to your customers. Go figure.
Yes.
But one thing I just want to say, for somebody who's been on both consumer side and the B2B side, so there's on your health journey and your life journey, there are times when you're a consumer and times you're a patient. So be really, I think as a brand, wherever you are on that spectrum, really it is owning to us, the professionals in this group, to really understand how you need to care about that data in a way that benefits your brand and your customer, and sometimes they're your patient. So I think that is also, for those of you who've done B2B work, and I've done B2B in the diagnostic therapeutic, that's a really serious business. So we make sure that we not only have FDA claims, but also to have marketing claims, people who could actually help you with the best marketing copy that lay people can understand, that it actually still meets all those requirements of things you cannot and cannot say. Also because those actually have matters, and the data that you give when you're maybe just a consumer that you're choosing versus when a doctor or a clinical says, you need to give me this data, but you do not want to have your genome mapping or your gastrointestinal. Some people do, but I'm just saying that's a very big difference in how each certain cohorts of target audiences view that data. So really know your audience and your end user, and to make sure that that is how you manage the brand.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. How are we doing on time? One more? Okay. Audiences, as they age, you know, we have different levels of demographics that, you know, have built trust with, and I think as we're entering the new demos, I mean, Gen Z will be in the working force in 5 years. We're there. They're there. Gen Alpha will be there after. Their level set is way different than some of the audiences that you're reaching in terms of trust and authenticity. And when we speak of wellness, like what is the level, you know, that you're working with that it's just the norm with some of these that then, so it's like two sides. You have to teach the older audiences, and then you just have to show up for the younger audiences. Is that something that you both think about, or in your organizations?
Okay. Yeah, for us, for sure. I am beyond excited to see the way menopause is now being treated in the world, and the way it's being talked about, and the way it's being marketed. I mean, there's a test now you can take at home to see if you're in perimenopause. Like 20 years ago, no one even said that word. That wasn't even anything that anyone ever talked about. So I think we're making so much progress on the aging side. There's just so much support and understanding and conversation happening in this space, and it's really, really exciting. Also, millennials are moving into that space, and that I think is a huge surprise. We have an audience at OLLY, and it's my favorite audience because it is called Surprised to Be Here. And it's my favorite. It's my favorite. But I think there are a lot of people who end up somewhere and they're like, I never thought this was going to happen to me. I never thought I was going to have to take a libido supplement. I never thought I was going to have to take Happy Hoo-Ha, which is one of our products, for real. So I think that it's becoming more open, and a lot of that is being driven by millennials getting older, but also Gen Z. There's so many upsides to Gen Z, and it's incredible to me what Gen Z finds acceptable and unacceptable, and they will push that, and they will say it out loud. And I think previous generations kind of always sort of erred on the side of like, oh, we don't want to rock the boat, we don't want to make the boomers mad. But Gen Z just kind of is unapologetically there. And if there's a need on that side, it is open. You can see it, you can hear it. So I think that is going to be really exciting to see how that pushes these conversations even further around like sexual wellness and around gender identity and relationships. Like, it's going to change the world in a positive way.
So, really good. I love that. I love the vitamins. So a couple things. We're looking at, obviously, if you think about care at home, the kind of the beachhead would be people who are actually, they're basically secluded at home because they're over 50. Or they have a comorbidity, so we're looking into that. But I think it's also interesting is that most all of them have a casual caregiver, whether they're their spouse, their wife, their children, their grandchildren, whatever. So we're looking at kind of a dyad group. What's also interesting, especially in health, anything that comes closer to your body, people have incredible different values and superstition and cultural meaning at different generation. Mm-hmm. So one of the key things that we're looking into is, which we are doing, is to like really do micro niche influencer. Now influencer, there's if you talk to the older cohort, they'll say influencer mean that I was gonna get the Surgeon General of the US Health. And if you talk to an influencer of a 25-year-old, they were like the latest TikTok, whoever. So exactly, to figure out who is actually your influencer and influencing target, and figure out how you could actually make sure that they're the part of your communication plan to land them so that the relevant of why they need to use a particular wearable device technology is actually meaningful for them. They just have a lot of different cultural references. What's great is that now the Gen Z, like my son and my daughter, they're now they're getting old school. They're knitting. My son, my daughter is knitting. My son, I think also because that cohort experiences, they might not have physical elements, but the highest rank of anxiety and mental health in generation. And then you have because I always say, anybody raise your hand between 39 and 43 is when general public feels like they're old. Like you don't have a great like exploration story. I climbed Kilimanjaro. You wake up one day and you're like, wait, I don't feel good. That's called feeling old. And it happens to you between 29 and 43. That's like data across the United States. But I also think that because of the experience of COVID and et cetera, we have a huge generation who actually are looking at all the things that buy, wearables, apps, everything possible from supplements really early on that the older generation didn't. So really figure out what's the communication and who are the really influencers that could actually move the needle in that area.
Mm-hmm. Thank you both. Learned a lot. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Good. All right. Thank you, guys.